Hello viewers, welcome back. I'm here today again with a very familiar face, Jannene Howse. We are now at the end of 2025, entering 2026. It's been a bumpy ride for a lot of people all around the world for a lot of reasons, including here in otherwise sunny Australia. Jannene, welcome back to the program. We wanted to start this series of interviews by doing a bit of a recap and a review of what's happened this year. 2025, of course, we're on the verge of 2026 right now. But yeah, a recap, a review, and possibly even a decode of what's been happening, because there has been a lot going on in the world, and a lot of it hasn't been particularly good, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. So yeah, I've been keeping track on all the events that have been going on this year, and I've found a very, very interesting pattern which I think everyone's going to appreciate. As I've been sharing on the channel, we've been decoding the news by a number of, there's a whole array of codes that we're filtering the news through.
Okay.
So what I want to share with people is the most blatant, obvious observation that I've made about all the significant events that have happened this year have all fallen on key religious holidays. And so we're going to look at this as I've been sharing all along, and particularly I've been emphasising what we call the Jewish feast days. They're known as the Jewish feast, but they're actually not Jewish. They were given by God for all Israel, and Israel is actually the United Kingdom and America. Surprise, surprise. So it's not Israel over there in the Middle East. Israel is much bigger than that. Genesis 37, I think it's verse 11, says that Jacob would be given a great nation and a company of nations, which have fulfilled, and there's a lot of books written about it, have fulfilled with America and the UK. So yeah, first surprise of the story is that we effectively are Israel, and people who've done a lot of research on where the lost tribes of Israel went have discovered, such as the website, okay, it's just escaping me now, but he's a Jerusalem scholar, britam.org, I'm pretty sure it is. He's a Jerusalem scholar, Jewish scholar, and he's done a lot of research on the lost tribes, and most people who have found that they ended up in England, in Britain, in Ireland, particularly in Ireland. They settled in Ireland and settled under the Zerah tribe of Judah, who ended up there as well. And so yes, we're just got to correctly identify everyone and everything, because once we start correctly identifying, then the story becomes apparent. We're actually watching a whole lot of amazing things happen all around us, but it goes unnoticed by most people because they're not correctly orientated. Systems and peoples and so on are not correctly identified, even times and events and so on. So the first event that I noticed, Robert, was the equinox. The equinox is the start of the year, and the equinox is when it's equal day and equal night. The hours of nighttime and the hours of daytime are equal. And that began this year on the 13th of the 3rd, 2025, which happened to be happened to be 12 or 13 years, 12 years after the Jesuit Pope got in, to the very day. And on this day there was a Purim blood moon, and the blood moon fell between Virgo. So if you know the zodiac, you'll know there's Virgo. Virgo's the woman, and she has Leo on top of her head, and right in between Leo was this blood moon, kind of where the crown would be. And the crown is actually, her crown is in Leo. When there were 3 extra planets that moved into Leo back in 2017, and they formed the crown of 12 stars on a head of Revelation chapter 12. So that incredible sign in the heavens that John wrote about in Revelation 12 fulfilled. Okay, so but this year, on the equinox, There was a pure and blood moon. On the very same day my divorce went through, which was a decree nisi on that very date, and on the very same date, that was 12 years, I believe, from the Jesuit Pope being inaugurated, which was the 13th of the 3rd, 2013. Anyway, just some things to note there. So the year kicked off with quite a bang. And now we think that the year begins with January the 1st. Well, hello, sorry, news break. No, it doesn't. That's a Gregorian calendar. But the original calendar, the Enoch calendar, that was written in the Book of Enoch, which is what we believe was the very original calendar, actually begins with the equinox. Equal part day, equal part night. So let's look at this from the true calendar's perspective. So the very next event on the calendar is the event of Passover. And that on that very day at midday, Keith Charles from Commonwealth Custodians gathered all of the representatives from all over Australia for every state to sign the new trust that he had written. So he decreed the restoration of the Commonwealth of Australia back in 2021 on the 11th of the 11th, and that went out to 3,000 people within the Australian government. And then I proclaimed it to the panel channel when I was operating as the communication coordinator for the Commonwealth of Australia, and also in my anointed role, and then they signed the trust, but he didn't even know what the day was. And I went up to him at the end of it all, and I've got it all on video, and I said, Keith, he's Keith Charles, he's the officer of the trustee of the Commonwealth of the restored Commonwealth of Australia, and I said, do you have any idea what today is? He goes, no, I've got no idea. So isn't that absolutely amazing? Now, what did Jesus do when he was on the cross at Passover? Well, he took away all the abuse of the world. Sin is abuse, right? So sin is a failure to respect others' rights and needs. 10 Commandments are a delineation of the rights and needs of God. That's the first tablet, first 4 commandments, and the rights and the needs of others is delineated in the last 6, but they are expanded in the statutes and judgments. And so we wouldn't know that it was stealing from God to withhold our tithe if we didn't read the statutes. So the statutes explain more about everybody's rights and needs, but they're summarised neatly in those principles. And So on Passover, Jesus took away all the sin of the world, and the sin is the abuse. He took away all the abuse. So what was fascinating was what Keith did in rewriting the trust and re-establishing the trust. He put Australia and perhaps the British Commonwealth, we don't quite know how this is going to play out yet, but he put Australia at least back under common law, and common law is based on the law of the 10 Commandments, which is, love your neighbour as yourself, do unto others you would have them do unto you. That is the principle of the law, and so it was a very significant event, I do believe. So that was Passover. So the next event happened to be my birthday, which was the 21st of the 4th, 2025, when I went to the National Day of Repentance at Parliament House. And it was there that the Lord gave me the message to reverse the curse, which was remember the law of Moses, which is the law of love and the law of freedom. So remember the law of the 10 Commandments, don't steal, don't kill, love your neighbour, and so on. And remember the Sabbath. And the Sabbath is the seal and the sign of God's law. It's the sign that we're his people. It's the seal of him as the creator. And there's you can't really keep the 10 Commandments unless you keep the Sabbath, because the Sabbath is time where we spend with him, where we learn his ways, where we receive his spirit, where we relate to him and one another, and our relationships change. There's this transformation sort of experience. So when I did that and proclaimed that, and I was invited to come up and speak, and I talked about this at our last interview, and I'm sorry, Robert, I've dived right in, but I know we're really short on time.
We are today, yes, but there's been a lot going on,
There
and
has.
it's not over yet.
Exactly,
Not by a
exactly.
long shot.
No. We are going into very interesting territory. So straight after I did that, Jesuit Pope resigned, World Economic Forum leader Klaus Schwab, the Jesuit Pope died, Klaus Schwab resigned. So then we came to Pentecost, and at Pentecost, I had a sign from the Lord indicating to me it was time to reverse the depopulation agenda. And to do that, there needed to be a delegation of authority to people. And so that's what I need to do now and explain to everybody. The crisis that we're in is a crisis of law. So Babylon has been continuing to rule since, for thousands of years. It ruled through the next kingdom, Medo-Persia, through Greece, through Rome, and then through Papal Rome. The Babylonian enslavement contract-based legal system has continued all the way down, and we were not under it with the Commonwealth of Australia, but when the Australian government took over in 1973, we came under the Babylonian enslavement contract-based system, which was when we were signed up to UniDroit. UniDroit is this contract-based legal system, and they began writing lots of new acts, new laws, but they were not authorised. The Australian people did not vote on a referendum to vote in the Australian government and vote out the Commonwealth. It was all done by stealth and subterfuge. And so anyway, at Pentecost of this year, I got the message it's time to reverse the curse, reverse the depopulation agenda, and that is done by delegating authority. And so as we're restoring the Commonwealth of Australia, and we're encouraging people to go through the 4 steps to come out, those 4 steps are, you can go to the commonwealthcustodians.com, sign on for only $10 a month and do the 4 steps. So the first step is get your birth registration paper from Births, Deaths and Marriages, number 1. Number 2, get that document notarised and get it apostilled by DFAT, which is the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and in doing that you come out of the Australian government. Get your name unincorporated by doing that through ASIC and turn your name into a not-for-profit entity. And the 4th one is to take an oath of affirmation or an oath or an affirmation, to the Commonwealth, and there's various ways of doing it, so you can do that there. And when you go through those 4 steps, you've come out from being an Australian citizen under the Australian government to being returning to be a Commonwealth national, and you're now under a different jurisdiction. You're back under common law, which is where our rights and our freedoms are protected. So I needed to just quickly go through that because I realised that that's like a little gap that I've been missing, and I haven't been sharing that with everybody. There's many other ways to begin walking in freedom. If you want to learn about common law, go to commonlaw.earth. If you want to learn how to walk in freedom, go to royalregistrydujour.com. If you want to walk beyond freedom, live beyond freedom and start dealing with things like superannuation, taxation, business entities, go to beyondfreedom.com. There's some key websites that I can recommend for everybody. Okay, so we're up to Pentecost, and I'm going to take a break and let you talk, Robert, because I've dived right in.
That's perfectly okay with me. It's been a number of months since we did our last round of interviews, so obviously during that time a lot has happened for us personally, but also locally and internationally. We did have an incident a few weeks ago in Bondi Beach here in Sydney, Australia, and that involved around the time of the Jewish Hanukkah. Getting up towards the end of the year, obviously it's Christmas and New Year for Christians, Hanukkah for the Jews. A lot of people are on holiday, annual holiday vacation, school holidays for the kids, summer in the Southern Hemisphere, nice time of year. But there was the shooting, the random shooting of people celebrating Hanukkah towards the north end of Bondi Beach here in Sydney. And for me, being from a media background and news-oriented work, I was there on the evening of the shooting, and then I was there for the vigil, which occurred a week later. Some media organisations were there literally every day. But it put a real downer on the whole summertime Christmas vibe we get here.
Yeah.
Obviously it's colder in the northern hemisphere because the southern hemisphere the seasons are reversed. Our summer is December to February. But it killed the atmosphere in a very big way. The next big news story I'm working on is New Year celebrations, and there will be a lot of heightened tensions over that. You know, large crowds gathering, celebrations, fireworks, parties. I think we've been through a hard year. This has been a hard year.
It's been a very difficult year, and the conclusion that I want to get to when I get to the end of it, but I'll give you a bit of a hint so you can look for this as I go through all the events that have happened, is that I believe this year, and I can prove it, and I will prove it, but I believe this year has been a series of created events that are predictive programming and an announcement of events that are going to happen next year. So with that, I want to get to the Bondi Massacre, but is it all right, Robert, if we do it in line? And I want to interview you about that because you've had a lot to do with that. So I know you're interviewing me, but will that be okay if I ask you some questions? That'd be fantastic. Can we go back to where I was on Pentecost? I was talking about what happened at Pentecost and how I was given this sign to reverse the depopulation agenda by delegating authority, which I've just done to you guys, and I've just shown you how you can get free. And when you reclaim your freedom, you reclaim your authority, because we authorise the Commonwealth of Australia, and when we reclaim our freedom and when we restore what we authorise, we restore our authority. So common law sits a lot higher than the Australian government law that we're under right now. So here's a little illustration of this is the law of Babylon that we've been under in the Australian government. This represents the Commonwealth of Australia is represented in this higher jurisdiction of law. This is a hierarchy of law. Down the bottom you've got the corporations. Right at the bottom, now that's what the police are, that's what the Australian government is, a corporation. It has no authority. Statutory legislation, administrative, maritime, commercial law. This is the law of the sea, maritime law. It's a de facto, it's legal, it's fiction, and it's public. This is the system that we're all in under the Australian government. But the higher realm of law is the law of the land. So you've got to get out of the law of the sea, because they've all assumed that we're all dead and lost at sea. We've got to get out of that, and we've got to reclaim our rights, which are on the law of the land. Above that you have constitutional law, then common law and natural law and universal law, which is the creator, the laws of God and the creator. That's the highest source of authority. So you can look at that line of authority when you look at the king being authorised and crowned, coronated. So the Archbishop represents God, but he's acting under law, and because everybody has to act under law in the United Kingdom, the Imperial Acts Application Act in Australia imported the Bill of Rights 1688, and so that is essential that the line of authority is correct, has come from God through the Archbishop upon the King, because he anoints the King, and that all has to be done according to the law, and that line of authority shouldn't be broken. He is there to uphold and defend the common law. That is the purpose. So yeah, I just want to show that there just so we get a picture of it. So in terms of restoring our authority, in terms of delegating authority, so that we can stop the depopulation agenda, because the people who are rolling out the depopulation agenda are down here. This is an unauthorised realm. This is the realm that has taken over under the Australian government. It represents Rome, but which is ultimately Babylon. And so there's a call at this time to come out of Babylon, and in doing that we come back into our own jurisdiction. So the other thing that happened at Pentecost, Robert, that was really interesting, which I have already talked about, that's why I want to fly through this and we'll get to the key stuff, was that there was an attack by Ukraine on Russia at this time, and that attack led to Russia's doomsday radio codes being activated for Judgment Day against the West. That's what the news reports are, the intelligence, the Russian intelligence news reports are. And so that then kicks into gear this whole message that we find that's been written in the prophecies, that there will be a time that will come where the world will be threatened by instant fiery destruction. And this is how it's written. It's in Malachi chapter 4 verse 1. It says, "Behold, the day comes that will burn as an oven, when all the proud and all the wicked will be burned up." But then it says, "But the righteous will shine, the Son of Righteousness will come," and I need to read it, sorry guys, just so that I get the words right. Says, "The day will come that will burn as an oven, all the proud and all the wicked will be stubble, and the day that comes will burn them up, says the Lord of hosts, leaving them neither root nor branch. But unto you who fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and you will go forth and grow up as calves of the stall, and you will tread down the wicked. There will be ashes under the soles of your feet." So in Revelation chapter 18 it says, "Come out of Babylon," because of the abuses of Babylon. Babylon is a human trafficking system. It says that she deals in souls and slaves of men. And she's known as the fornicating Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. She's a mother of prostitutes. So it's a prostituting power. We know that this is based in the Vatican. This is the hub. This is where the great big spider sits at the centre of the great world web. And we know that from Gabriele Stavo. I'm just going to quote a whole stack of people here. Gabriele Stavo, he's got the most amazing story on the internet. If you want to watch something that is truly surreal, will blow your mind. He was raised in a family of people who were working for the enemy, and the poor guy, he was, as a child, he was taken from his family, from his mum and father, and he was raised by demons, literally, that would manifest all around him 24/7, about 35 of them all day long, and he was trained by them to be a right-hand man for the devil himself. He's recently been converted. He actually, through his thoughts, asked Jesus to come and reveal himself to him, and Jesus revealed himself and delivered him and set him free. And most people who become a Christian from that kind of world are immediately killed. They've tried many ways to kill him, and they can't kill him. And he's revealing that the devil literally lives in the Vatican. There's a room in the Vatican. He literally lives in there. He's not omnipresent, and the Jesuit general meets with him every day. And Malachi Martin had revealed this information, and Malachi Martin was murdered for it. So that's where the heart of evil is, and this is Babylon that we've called to come out of, because it says it will burn in 1 hour. Babylon will burn in 1 hour. There's a lot of people who've shown the correlation between Rome and Washington. Washington was called Rome. It's a mirror image of Rome. The whole setup, all the buildings, all the infrastructure, all of the pattern of where all the buildings are, looking at it from above. But it's on 7 hills and has a river Tiber, and it was owned by Mr. Francis Pope. And so many people say that Babylon is actually America. There's a lot of evidence to indicate that Babylon is actually America. So we might not just be talking about the Vatican, we could be talking about America as well. So this is a very serious warning. And the warning is, as we read in Revelation chapter 18, come out of Babylon, because it's going to burn in 1 hour. But come out so you're not a part of its abuses and you don't receive its plagues. That's God's call. And so the call to prevent this doomsday, judgment day, the message in the prophets is, remember the law of Moses, my servant, who I commanded unto him in Horeb. So this is divine judgment. So we read in the prophecies that there's an announcement to fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. And that message has been going out now since 1844, but we're in the time of the judgment of the living now. So it's a very serious time, and God's calling everyone to recognise there's a higher law than the rules and the little policies and the little acts and statutes and everything that everyone finds themselves under. There's a higher law, and we learned that at Nuremberg, didn't we, Robert? We learned that at Nuremberg, that there's a higher law above the law of the Nazis. You know, people were ordered and put in these difficult positions where they had to do this, they had to do that. But if they recognised there was a higher law, they would have held those orders that they were being given to account to the higher law, and that's what we're being asked to do. So the law is, you know, love your neighbour as yourself. In the common law, it's do no harm or threat of harm to any person or their property, and that's the principle of God's law. And so God is calling us back to this in this prophecy, and this is outside of all government. This is recognising that there's a higher authority. We have a creator, and ultimately we're accountable to him, and judgment's been going on in heaven. And then he says, behold, I'll send you Elijah the prophet before this great and dreadful day happens, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he will turn the heart of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Now just imagine if there is some kind of nuclear or atomic event of some kind, or maybe there's some kind of technology, Robert, that we're not familiar with. Just imagine what it will do to the earth if that does happen, because he says, like, turn now before it happens. Now this is actually happening in America. So I proclaimed it this year, and from the point of Charlie Kirk's assassination, there has been, as we know, he created the organisation called Turning Point, and there has been a real turning point. And we don't want, however, the unification of church and state, because that always results in persecution. So this is a call to everyone as individuals. This is not a call to the government to impose God's law upon everybody. That's not what this is about at all. That has always caused terrible persecution. So we're almost at Charlie Kirk's assassination on the timeline. So the next event I want to go to, and then we'll get to Charlie Kirk's assassination, and we're going to talk about what's going on there and what's behind it all. On the 1st of Elul, on the Hebrew calendar, God's calendar, which is the 6th month from the first new moon of the year after the equinox, right? 6 months in, so it's 1 month to the 7th month. The 7th month is a holy month, and it begins, the 7th month begins with the Feast of Trumpets, and the trumpets blow all day long, and that is a warning to everyone that coming day of judgment is coming. So on the 1st of Elul, guess what happened in Australia? So 1 month countdown to the Day of Atonement, or Judgment Day. 40-day countdown, sorry. On that day, we had the Desi Freeman disappearance, and apparently he shot 3 officers. And I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of the story too much, because I'm not an expert on that. Robert, maybe you are. I know you've asked some interesting questions.
Well, I do know someone who claimed to be quite close to Desi Freeman. I don't know the full story, because realistically, I feel the full story hasn't been told to us.
Right. Do you know anything about the full story?
No. There certainly would seem to be more questions than answers in that regard.
Yeah.
Apparently 10 police officers went to his property. 3 were shot, 2 fatally. That leaves another 7. What were they doing while these other officers, their colleagues, were being shot? How did he escape on foot so easily?
When there were 7 police officers there.
Yeah, they were armed.
Foot, and they're armed, and they've got
he was on foot carrying weapons and apparently a pair of reading glasses, and they all had cars. Apparently it was a total of 10 police in 5 cars. I don't know what happened. He hasn't been found. Has he escaped into the wilderness? Is he dead somewhere?
Is he being hidden?
Has he been hidden or concealed by a friend? Has he escaped but gone a long distance? It would probably be foolish to stay in the same area, considering the size and duration of the manhunt. But again, these are only questions, not answers. I'm not sure what happened.
Right.
Even the person who said to me that he was quite close to Desi Freeman, I don't think he knew him personally. They'd only ever chatted by phone.
Oh, okay, sure.
So, yeah, look, more questions than answers. And even at this stage, it's been, what, probably 4 months or longer since that incident occurred?
Yeah. Can I share my observations about this event, a decode from using the principles that I've been watching play out? The principles of time, place and circumstance and people's names being significant in telling a story. Now, I know that can sound really surreal and really out there, but just wait, because there's something really fascinating in this. Now, I've just shared with you about the Pentecost doomsday radio being activated by Russia against the West, and I've just read to you the prophecy about that event happening. Now I want you to take a look at all the elements of what actually happened in the Desi Freeman event. Desi Freeman was not his real name. He had changed his name, and Desi means desiring freedom. So he's kind of like a symbol of all those desiring freedom. I mean, I want to kick it up to a different level. So I don't want you to, I'm looking at the symbolic decodes out of the story because I found it to be very fascinating. So he has 10 law representatives come to his home. Remember what I was just reading about the 10 commandments? They're the 10 laws. They're known as the 10 laws. So he has 10 laws come to his home, and 3 of them fall down. 3 of them fall down, and there's 7 left. And the first one is number 4, which is, if we put that into the 10 commandments, the 4th commandment is remember the Sabbath. Now, what does Desi Freeman do? The story that we have is that he runs to the mountains, right? And he runs to the caves, and he runs to the rocks and to the hiding places. That is actually referred to in the Bible. It's in the prophecies that people will run to the rocks, and I believe it's a predictive programming event. And this is what I'm about to share, and the reason why. I don't believe it was an accidental event, and I can prove it because Derek Johnson, who is the military comms and the military law expert in America, has just written a book. It's an absolute hot top selling book over in America. I can't remember the name of it, but he says that both governments, whether they're on the left or the right, have the law on their side to create events, to prepare people for things that will happen, or to bring in laws or to further their agenda. It's a lawful thing. So I'm looking at it through the code of a military comm, okay, and a predictive programming event. So what I find really fascinating is that 450 policemen were sent out looking for him, no more, no less, exactly 450. If you filter that through the code of the Bible, that number is only used once ever, and it's used for the number of the priests of Baal. So the story of Mount Carmel was there were 450 priests of Baal who came to Mount Carmel, and Elijah was representing God, and so there's this big showdown on the mountain, who's going to bring down fire from heaven. And it was Elijah's God who brought down fire from heaven, but the priests of Baal couldn't. So there's a hint here that, is this a predictive programming event? Why was it 450? Why wasn't it 449? Why wasn't it 460? Why wasn't it 200? Why wasn't it any other number? I just want to share how there's very interesting things. The road was called the Great Alpine Road, which means it's the road that goes to the mountains. It's a great road that goes to the mountains, and he runs to the mountains. The place where it happens is on the Ovens River. Now remember how I just read in Malachi 4 how it says, "Behold, the day comes that will burn as an oven." Now what's very interesting is that just above the Ovens River is Mount Hotham, but if you break it up and you don't say it the way you're supposed to say it, but you say it the way it's written, it's Mount Hot Ham. And Ham was the father of Canaan, and the Canaanites that God has an issue with in the day of judgment. And so when the children of Israel crossed over the Jordan into the promised land, we all know that story. We know that concept, don't we? You know, crossing over into the promised land. I'm sorry to get into religious topics, but I'm trying to do a decode here, and that's all I can see. So when we get into the promised land, they dealt with the Canaanites, and God said, I've given it unto you, you know, the children of Israel, to execute my judgment upon the Canaanites, because they're involved in every form of sexual abomination and abuse, every form of abuse. And so this mountain is Mount Hot Ham, and you've got the Ovens River, the day that comes that burns as an oven. And now the reason why I found it significant was that I had an incident happen at that Ovens River. So I'd already had God speak to me through that place, and so I found it really, really fascinating. Anyway, just something to think about. And it's right near, and right below Mount Hotham is a town called Smoko, and below Smoko is a town called Bright. And they all kind of sort of seem to fill out the picture. Anyway, that's what I see, and it just happened to fall exactly 40 days before Judgment Day, which is when what the Jews do, they begin their time of repentance on the 1st of Elul, on that date. And that, I don't know whether they believe that Elijah comes on that date, but I believe that the Elijah message began, was really shown through this predictive programming event. Okay, the next event that we come to is Charlie Kirk's assassination, which, by the way, even though it fell on 9/10, so the 10th of the 9th month, the 10th of September in 2025 in America, in Australia it was 9/11. That was the date when that happened. Now, Charlie Kirk, when I run all the filters through the codes on his story, on the story of his assassination, again, I come up with the same thing. Again, it looks like a military comm and a predictive programming event and an announcement of something that's going to happen next year. So that's the reason why I'm sort of highlighting this, Robert, is I think we're looking at, because we all know some very significant things have happened, but we don't know what they are. We don't know how to read it or how to make sense of it. But if we filter it this way, this is what I've found. So what do you think Charlie means?
Well, that would be derived from, obviously, in terms of etymology, Charles, which I believe is, in Spanish it's Carlos.
Oh, is it?
I believe so.
Okay.
The actual root etymology or hidden meaning of the word, I'm really not sure.
Sure,
Very
okay.
regal sounding name, very old school sounding name.
It certainly is, isn't it? It actually means free man.
Okay.
So again, we had Desi Freeman in Australia, but now we've got Charlie Freeman. Now his middle name is James, and James is comes from Jacob, which is Israel, and his last name is Kirk, and Kirk means church. So if we break it down to the literal meaning of his name, it's Freeman Israel Church, or the church, if we read it from right to left as Hebrews read, the Church of Israel's Freeman. Okay, so it happened at the Utah Valley University, Utah Valley. So I looked up the meaning of Utah, and Utah means people of the mountains. So as I've been sharing, Jesus has been giving a call since 2015 for people to escape the cities, because this day is coming that will burn as an oven, and cities are going to be burned up. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but it's a warning, and he's been saying go to the mountains. So here you've got the people of the mountains in the Utah Valley University, and you've got Charlie Freeman Israel Church, and he's down there and he's under a tent, and the tent says prove me wrong. So he's giving a message, and he's interacting with everybody, and he's saying, I'm sharing the truth with you, and I'm happy to have a discussion with you, and I'm happy to ask you why you believe what you believe, but prove me wrong. You know, he's got this sign all around the tent. It happens on 9/11. I've mentioned that now. Why is 9/11 significant? It's significant because this is the Jesuit signature. So whenever it's on a 9/11 date, we know who's done it. So at Ground Zero, which happened, 9/11.
Yes.
Yes, they had the big numbers 9/11 in Latin numerals on an enormous billboard. So it's 1XX1 in Roman numerals, and that is the symbol on the Jesuits' ring, the seal on their ring, and so it's their signature, it's their stamp. So we've got a bit of an idea of who was behind this. And so Charlie is shot, and everybody scatters, everybody runs. So there's this gathering everybody together, and then there's persecution and a scattering. Okay, so I believe we're going to see these events happen next year. All right, so we've got to Charlie Kirk. So it happens on 9/11, but guess when they celebrate the memorial? It happens on the Feast of Trumpets. So you've got Donald Trump at Charlie's memorial. You've got all the Trumpettes, all of the other Trump administration people are, almost all of them are there at Charlie's memorial. And what's fascinating about Charlie Kirk is that the leaders, including President Trump and JD Vance, all acknowledged Charlie as having been the one who did the hard yards to put them in the White House. And so he obviously had a lot to do with turning America. And so this happens on the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so in between Charlie's assassination and the Feast of Trumpets, Charlie Kirk Memorial, Donald Trump went to see King Charles. He was invited actually to go and visit King Charles, and I think he was invited by the government, and it was only, I think it was the second time in history that a world leader has received a second invite. Were you familiar with that, Robert?
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, and apparently they were doing a deal on AI together.
Yes.
But what I found fascinating was, and there's a couple of things here that I just want to highlight as military comms, okay? I don't want you to think that I'm going too far and thinking like a crazy person. This is the way military comms are communicated. So Melania, who we know her clothing is being used as a billboard to send messages about the things that are going on. She wore a bright yellow stretchy dress to this really fancy state dinner at, I don't know if it was Windsor Castle, anyway, it was at one of the castles, and it was a big, very big deal, but it looked so out of place, and it just jumped out of the photos. But I believe they're indicating the colour yellow, indicating the sun, and I think it's indicating the movement towards Sunday, because we read in the prophecies that there's going to be a time where the mark of the beast is going to be imposed upon the whole world. Nobody will be able to buy or sell unless they keep the mark of the beast. And if we do a full decode on what the mark of the beast actually is, we find the beast is the sea beast of Revelation 13, and the beast of the sea, or the power of the sea, is the power that holds maritime law, and that is Rome, that is the Vatican. They rule their canon law under maritime law, which is the law of the sea. So they are the sea beasts. So they're the ones who have the mark. And they say themselves that their mark of authority is that they change God's 10 Commandments. That God himself came down from heaven to earth on Mount Sinai and spoke in fire and, trumpets and a great voice and earthquake. It was a terrifying, fearful event to impress everyone with his authority. And he wrote the 10 Commandments on 2 tables of stone with his finger. And so the mark of the beast, when the papacy says that we changed the fourth commandment from Saturday to Sunday, they say this is our mark of authority to rule the world. And we have statements that they've written where they say that we're going to impose this. Then I want to highlight that at the Feast of Trumpets Charlie Kirk Memorial, Erica Kirk, so the highlight speech of that entire day was Erica Kirk, his wife, giving her speech, and she said in the middle of her speech, mark your soul and go to church on Sunday, this Sunday and the next Sunday, which was a very interesting sort of comment out of the blue. Then on, again, it was a significant religious festival, the Day of Atonement. Donald Trump had recalled all generals, US generals from all over the world to Washington. Oh, actually it was General Hegseth. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Event?
Yep.
That happened to be the Day of Atonement.
Okay.
And their commission, everyone wondered what it was going to be all about. Essentially their commission was taking them from the woke agenda and replacing the woke agenda with the awakening. So they're taken from the left wing to the right wing to defend now Christianity. And one of the very first missions they were sent on was, I think it was Muslims attacking Christians over in an African country, and they were sent in. They were sent in there. Now it's just a small event, and I don't want to focus on it too much, but just to give the general picture that a major transition was happening in our world. Then on the last great day of the Feast of Tabernacles, there was this message going out amongst all the freedom movement that Donald Trump was going to make this very big announcement on the 15th of October. That just happened to be the last great day of the Feast of Tabernacles, and on that date he made the announcement for the military to begin Operation Hot Summer, which was the military going into the cities in America, and I think the first city they went into was Chicago. Mm-hmm. Okay, yes. So if we think about this as an announcement and a predictive programming event for things that very likely, I believe, will happen next year at the same time, we begin to see a bit of a picture, begin to make sense of the events that we're looking at. Now, I've got reasons for why I say that, because I believe that we're in the events that are leading to this final great crisis, and it is the judgment hour crisis of the world. People are going to be pushed into a position according to the prophecies where they either take the mark of the beast or they don't, and you know, I've been talking about it for a long time now. Well, all those events are being predicted through these possibly military comms. So after that event, the next big event on the world stage that I noticed was King Charles being invited by the Pope to go and sit in a special seat in the Holy See. Did you see that at all?
I did hear something about it. I didn't follow it closely for one reason or another, just being focused on other things.
Of course, exactly. Yeah. In terms of a world event though, I believe it was huge, because he was invited to sit in this special seat. Now the word Holy See comes from the word seed, which in Latin is seat. So the Holy See represents not an ocean but the holy seat. And what is that holy seat? Well, they say it's the seat of Peter. They say because Peter was authorised, you know, and they take Matthew 16 and they've twisted the meaning of Matthew 16. So, and they've taken the view that Peter was, you know, the authority among all the disciples, and so he's the one who makes the laws and he had the authority to change the law. So anyway, King Charles invited to sit alongside the Pope on the altar stage with the Pope, and he's sitting in a seat exactly like the Pope's seat, he and his wife, and these two seats have been designated especially for the King and his wife, the Queen, and they just happen to be sitting underneath the Last Judgment scene by Michelangelo. So it's all symbolic, it's all a code, and it's all sending out a message. And what does this holy seat actually represent? It represents canon law. canon law as opposed to common law. King Charles is the king of common law. It's his role to defend the law of the nation, and he's just sat in the seat of canon law, which is diametrically opposed. I mean, it is so seriously diametrically opposed that at the Reformation Parliament, they spent 7 years literally writing acts and everything to evict the papacy out of England. And then the Bill of Rights actually says that if the king has any affiliation with the papacy at all, he has immediately disqualified himself as king. And the kingdom is to be Protestant. I've already announced this. Kingdom is to be Protestant, to be protesters against this abusive power. And the issue is not the people, it is about a system of abuse that has put abuse into law. So I really want to emphasise that. This is not about, Jesus loves Catholic people, and he loves Muslim people, he loves Christian people, he loves everybody, he loves everybody. So I don't want this to come across as... This is about a system of law that has legalised abuse and runs for the sake of abuse. And so God pinpoints this, in the prophecies. And so this event was hugely significant because the king has openly sort of shown his allegiance and where it lies, and he has put himself completely outside of the law of succession of the Bill of Rights, which states profoundly, and I would encourage everybody to look it up, Bill of Rights 1688, 1689. Okay, so I won't go into that anymore. Now, Erica Kirk, after this happened, she began travelling with Vice President J.D. Vance to, among many other things, with promoting Turning Point. She's also promoting Charlie Kirk's last book, which wasn't complete when he died, and it's called Stop in the Name of God, and it's a call to keep the Sabbath. So Charlie Kirk had started keeping the Sabbath, as in the actual, creation Sabbath, which falls on Saturday. He was still going to church on Sunday, but he was keeping the whole day of Sabbath as a rest day. And interestingly, even the Pope has issued a call to keep the Sabbath. I'm just citing what I've heard other people reporting. I don't have the concrete information. I have read it, but I just haven't got it at hand because I've had to pull this together really quickly. So I encourage everybody to research that for yourself. But what we find is in the very early days of Christianity, Christians all originally kept the Sabbath. And then there was a gradual transition to Sunday because of Mithraism. That was one of the religions in the Roman Empire. And then gradually we came up to 363 AD when the Council of Laodicea enforced Sunday and said if you keep the Sabbath now, you're considered a Judaizer. So they put this label of Judaizer over anyone who kept the Sabbath. But the fact is the Sabbath was given at creation. There never was a Jew at creation, and Jesus said the Sabbath is made for man. So God's given us all of us this beautiful gift, a day of rest. And so Erica Kirk is still travelling the nation on this speaking tour, and she's like the hottest item at the moment. And this is what she's pushing. So as I've been showing all of these events, now we're seeing how it's actually materialising, and this message is actually beginning to go. And as I've been sharing all along, God is calling us to this because this is really what the final test is going to end up being about, and about who we worship as well. And so the next really big event on the calendar was the digital ID push here in Australia. Robert, were you keeping track of that?
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. There's a lot of concerns about it, definitely, and not just in Australia.
Yeah. So in Australia they found a way to kind of sneak it in, and that was with the social media age ban. And so the kids have got to come up with, a buy digital data to be able to prove that they're, you know, under 16 or over 16 so they can access the internet. So I got some advice from our constitutional law experts, and their advice to me was to basically bombard the High Court with a call for an urgent the word's just gone out of my head.
Are you referring to something along the lines of an injunction?
An urgent injunction. Thank you, Robert. I got really lost there for a minute.
Okay, I've got you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. An urgent injunction in the High Court, yeah, because there was a case in the court at the time, based on section... No, it's not section 92. No, there's another case in the High Court. And so because there's a case in the High Court, that needs to be resolved. And so that was my call. And so I sent it out to a lot of organisations encouraging people to send that to the High Court. And then the next event, so that was the 10th of December. The next event was the Hanukkah Bondi massacre, and that's what we really want to talk about, isn't it? Because Robert, you live in Bondi.
Yeah,
essentially.
I live not far from where that happened, a mile away. Obviously I went there. Things happened very quickly. I wasn't there actually at the time of the shooting, but during the aftermath, a lot of media descended on the location there at the northern end of Bondi Beach here in Sydney.
How soon after were you there?
Well, the shooting occurred in the afternoon. I seem to recall around the time I was getting there we were losing the light, but the media were there. We had cameras, video cameras, etc., etc. Couldn't get very close to the location, the footbridge where the shooters were standing. So there's a footbridge going from the main street that runs along the beach and the car park over across into a parkland area, and then the beach proper with the sand. So the gunmen were on the footbridge, excuse me, and they were shooting towards a grassed area called Archer Park, where you had people gathered for Hanukkah. It was said that the son, the younger gunman, had actually been trying to shoo people away, for want of a better term, which gives the impression they were specifically targeting Jews, not people at random. Yeah, as I said, it had a very big impact on the area because there had been a stabbing in Bondi, Jolcouchie, about a year before, maybe a bit longer than a year. And you know, Bondi Beach is a very popular tourist area, arguably Australia's most famous beach, very, very popular. A lot of travellers, a lot of foreign expats, British expats are living down there. But the area, in terms of reputation, I think the area took a bit of a battering after those two events. And now you've got New Year's Eve coming up again. That's another big news media story, which is pretty much occurring right now. And I think people will be on edge because tensions will be heightened.
Right, haven't we had some new laws from Christmas Eve onwards about...
in regards to...
Yeah, well my understanding is, and I'm not posing as an expert on this, I'm really just wanting to decode the news that I'm aware of, and other people, I fully recognise many other people have a lot more information than me, because I've had a very busy year in my private life, but apparently on Christmas Eve new gun laws went into place, hate crimes laws and no protests for 2 weeks, which may be extended to 3 months, is that right?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. There was a government-implemented gun buyback scheme, and some changes along those lines. Apparently the father, there was a son and father shooter. The father, although he'd been living in Australia a long time, never got naturalised, never became a citizen, owned half a dozen, possibly more weapons. Obviously they did because they used them on the day. But yeah, there were some changes. Whether they've been fully introduced yet or are going to roll out, I'm not sure. But yes, you know, there is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to these types of things, isn't there? Exactly.
And so how do you think that might impact the New Year's Eve?
I just primarily think people are going to be scared about gathering in public places.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at least in Sydney, the New Year's festivities are centred on Sydney Harbour.
Right.
And although Australia is a population of only a little over 25 million people, You get more than 1 million lining the foreshores of Sydney Harbour for that one evening. And I mean, security is always a risk in large gatherings. But what I'm saying is now the tensions would be heightened. You know, there'll be more fear. There may be people deliberately avoiding crowds. The size of the crowd may have gone down, maybe less than usual as a result of people's concerns. And the fact that it's the end of the year, a lot of people are tired. It has been a hard year on a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely. So the no protest is the no protest gathering law is obviously to dispel any further type incidents or fear of any similar incidents.
I think so. You could have a flashpoint where you'll have someone having a protest. I think a lot of it does revolve around Gaza and Israel, this ongoing dispute there, conflict. There's been a lot of talk of ceasefires that don't seem to last long, etc., etc. The issue with protests in Australia is they have to be approved by police. So you apply to the police for a protest, whatever the cause may be. Sometimes people do have illegal gatherings, but there's going to be, at least until things settle down, and who knows when that'll be, if or when. So there are going to be tighter restrictions on who can have protests and when they can hold them. You know, when everyone's on edge and there's a lot of bitterness and rivalry, finger pointing, etc. So they're going to be more careful. Definitely, the authorities are going to police these things more strictly.
And do you know much about the hate crimes laws that have come in?
Well, hate crimes, hate speech.
Hate speech.
Not only in Australia though, that's happening everywhere. There's a lot of talk about that, even in a lot, in fact, from the UK, for example. People being arrested, people being jailed, people getting a knock at the door as a result of posts on social media. So it's being more tightly monitored and policed, definitely.
Yes. So I find that very interesting, having met the man who single-handedly fought hate crimes laws in Australia, Britain and America. His name is Reverend Dr. Jannene, and he has quite a fascinating story. I think he has a book written about it, but the hate crimes laws at that time, which was in the first decade of the 2000s, they were restricting people's speech. So I haven't taken a look at the current law, but I just find it very interesting. But one of my observations is that a few people have commented to me, and again, I'm sorry, I haven't had a lot of time to put a lot of research into this to like pull up dates and everything, but quite a few people have commented to me that John Howard called for stricter gun laws or some change to the gun laws just a few days before this event. Did you hear about that?
He's a former Prime Minister. It's been quite a few years since he was in power. Initially, he did this after the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, which occurred in Tasmania. And there's a lot of unanswered questions about that particular scenario or saga. I mean, I think it's beyond the scope for us to delve into that particular topic.
Absolutely.
But yeah, he's always been a bit outspoken about gun laws and gun control. Even to the extent of commenting to some extent on what happens in America with gun control.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. So that was obviously one of the important issues for him as a political leader.
Yeah, obviously it was, What I find in this Bondi situation, which is absolutely horrendous, and I just want to share my condolences to all the families who died, to all the Jewish people in Australia for the fear, that this has generated, and I want to call everyone to consider that really there's only two ways of living. We can live with an abusive mindset, where we're angry at someone or we want to take them down or we want to get revenge or whatever, or we live with a loving, forgiving mindset. And the kingdom of heaven is the law of love, to respect and meet others' rights and needs, and to respect their boundaries. And I just want to encourage people, if we live that way, and if we choose to love and forgive, but also set healthy boundaries for people's for their rights and needs to be respected, we can all live together in peace. We can live together in love. Yeah, that's just what I would really like to highlight and encourage people to, because the World War III plan that was actually written is for the Illuminati leader in each of the three Abrahamic religions, that's the Muslims, the Christians and the Jews, to fight it out between one another till they mutually destroy the religions and the nations that they're in, dragging all their resources until they're completely smashed and obliterated. And then the plan is for the religion of the Illuminati to rise. That this is the plan for World War III. So what we could have actually looked at could have been a triggering event, or an event that's been used, an inciting event, to try to trigger this agitation and civil war between different religions. So Australia, Australia, if things went bad, could be a real nightmare. But what I want to highlight is the awesomeness of Aussies and their response. I listened into one of the memorial services, and they had a Israeli anti-terrorism, who's kind of like a counsellor who would travel, it seems like he travels wherever there's been a terrorism incident, on Jewish people, and he just brings some comfort and compassion. I hope I'm reading it right, but that's how it appeared. And he said, and I listened to him say this, that he had never seen so much opposition by bystanders to a terrorist. People were throwing things at him, apparently, and then you had that amazing hero who himself was a Muslim, who tackled him and disarmed him. The young son who was...
Yeah, he was a local business owner in the Bondi area. He was the one that approached the father, and then the father went up onto the footbridge where the son was. Yes, someone did wrestle the rifle from the father. Then another fellow came in and threw what was apparently half a brick at the father, but that person who threw the brick, he was shot and killed. The Muslim man who wrestled the rifle away from the father, I believe he took 2 bullet wounds to the shoulder and was recovering in hospital. But the one who threw the brick, he later died.
He died.
Yeah, there was, in round figures, I believe there was 40 people in hospital and 15 dead.
Oh, wow.
I can't recall off the top of my head what it was. And on the day when these things are happening, the numbers keep changing, or they don't know, or they won't tell you.
I know.
But in round figures, 15 dead, 40 injured.
Right.
I haven't kept abreast of the recovery of those 40. Some may recover and be released from hospital, others may die. We don't know. The son, the gunman son, he was released from hospital and went to prison, Sydney prison called Long Bay Jail, which is not the highest security prison, but apparently has good hospital facilities. So that's probably why he's in there.
Right.
Beyond that, that's broadly the last thing I've heard about the case.
Right, me too. There hasn't been a lot of news recently, has there? So it was interesting to hear Derek Johnson talking about some of the recent events, and he stated that that there are laws allowing certain staged events to forward agendas on the right and the left, and the right. But what I loved to see was the Aussie mateship. Really, as people really looked out for each other, and the outpouring of sympathy and grief and love, towards the victims. And I wanted to read this little poem expressing the mateship of Australia. There's a Henry Lawson poem that says, "A mate can do no wrong." This just expresses the Aussie mateship spirit. We learned the creed at Hungerford, we learned the creed at Burke, we learnt it in the good times and learnt it out of work. We learnt it by the harbour side and on the billabong. No matter what a mate may do, a mate can do no wrong. He's like a king in this respect, no matter what they do, and king-like shares in storm and shine the throne of life with you. We learnt it when we were in jail and put it in a song. No matter what a mate can do no wrong. They'll say he said a bitter word when he's away or dead. We're loyal to his memory no matter what he said. But we never should hesitate, but strike out good and strong and jolt the slanderer on the jaw. A mate can do no wrong. Now I just need to say I don't encourage people to hit somebody on the jaw, and I don't really believe in the whole philosophy that your mate can't do any wrong, but it epitomises the Aussie principle of standing by your mate, standing by one another, and that's what we need. We all live on the same country, and we need to encourage people who've I think we need to encourage people who've come from other countries and to learn English and to learn the culture, learn the laws that we live under here, and assimilate. Assimilate. Or if they don't like it here and they've still got all those issues, go somewhere else. Because Australia is a country where we love one another, we stand by each other, we care for each other, we look out for each other, we support each other. That's who we are as Aussies, don't you think, Robert?
Yeah, I would agree with that totally.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating when you look into this. Okay, here's a quote here. It is by The Liberal Illusion by Louis Veuillot, published by the National Catholic Welfare Conference in Washington in 1939. And it states, "When the time comes and men realise that the social edifice must be rebuilt according to eternal standards, be it tomorrow or be it centuries from now, the Catholics will arrange to suit these said standards. They will make obligatory the religious observation of Sunday on behalf of the whole of society and for its own good, revoking the permit for free thinkers and Jews to celebrate incognito Monday or Saturday on their own account." So there is a plan for this, and so I just want people to understand that we're not just talking off the top of our head. Those whom this may annoy will have to put up with this annoyance. Respect will not be refused to the Creator nor reposed to the creature, simply for the sake of humouring certain maniacs whose frenetic condition causes them stupidly and insolently to block the will of the whole people. In a word, Catholic society will be Catholic. The dissenters whom it will tolerate will know its charity but not be allowed to disrupt its unity. So how are they going to do that? Well, we're going to look at a statement here. The magazine Foyet Ray, this was published I'll tell you what was published first, so you get a sense of the gravitas of this quote. This information was released in a special statement by P.A. DeVille, President of the Defenders of the American Constitution. He was a retired Lieutenant General of the US Army. Reported in the magazine Die Botschaft vom Reich in the article One Step Nearer, and reported in November-December 1994 Newswatch. Okay, we're going to read this quote now. The magazine Foyet Ray reported from the United Nations Organisation in Geneva, Switzerland, that plans are worked out to dissolve the United Nations to make way for a world tribunal which will seize all possessions and all savings and bank deposits. Every man, woman and child will receive a certain amount of money and a number. This money is already available and deposited in a bank waiting for distribution. Everyone with a number will be employed either in the administrative, the commerce, the industrial or the agricultural branch. This project and this plan provides for a single form of worship. The appointed day for all people will be Sunday. The number received by the people will promise the right to buy or sell. So there we have it. There's our Mark of the Beast plan, but we've got it. We can see how it's a globalist. It's in It's going to have a globalist reach. At the end of this statement, a Christian rose and asked the speaker, what will happen to the minorities who do not accept this plan? The Christian was told their number will be cancelled with a black line and they'll be deprived of the right to buy and sell and thus be forced to destruction. So this is why I'm encouraging people to, because this is the judgment, this is the final judgment it's going on in heaven as people make the final decision, whose side are they going to be on. And so I'm encouraging people to survive this trap, because Jesus says the end comes as a trap, and it is literally a trap. And so Jesus' encouragement is to run to the mountains, go to the mountains and get yourself self-sufficient. You know, live together with friends, with other believers, and become self-sufficient. So I just wanted to read the passage in the Bible that this mirrors, and this is the warning that we've been given. It's from Revelation chapter 13. I know I've shared it before. I'm going to share it again if that's all right, Robert.
Is it a fairly brief?
I'll keep it really brief, yeah. And he had power to give life to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. He causes all, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, that no one might buy or sell save he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. It is the number of a man, and his number is 666, or 666. And we can show, you know, how the Pope's official title, Vicarius Filii Dei, adds up to 666 in 3 languages. And that's not just, you know, there's many, many names, there's many, many symbols all over the Vatican, and that number is, you know, just the number that is special for them in the occult numerology. So the good news is that we now have a way of freedom to survive this system if we come out of it, as I've been sharing. If we come out of the Australian government, we return to our Commonwealth of Australia, we return to common law, and we can live in a way that protects our rights and freedoms. So I've been sharing that, and the important thing, though, in the middle of all of that is emphasising that Jesus separated the realms of church and state. While ever there is governments on this earth, he never ever encouraged the unification of church and state, except for his kingdom Israel. His kingdom Israel was a theocracy, but when his people were in captivity in Babylon, the principle of separation of church and state was really emphasised. And because if we try and unite church and state, we end up with one religion taking dominance, that religion then dominating everybody else, and persecution happening to other people. So we just want to really emphasise that.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.